In order to create emotional safety, we often think it's about doing and saying the right things. But actually, it's about if you keep sacrificing your needs, how are you going to be the kind of person who commands respect and admiration? You're going to ask for space, but you're going to do it in the right way. You're not going to say, have you been working hard to save your marriage? But everything you're doing just seems to be taking way too long and you're running out of time and you're starting to get exhausted and frustrated and burnt out. This video is for you. Now, this is the third in a 3-part series, so if you haven't watched the other 2, please do that now. In this video, I want you to watch all the way through to the end because I'm going to share with you a simple yet profound practice that can help you to reconnect with your partner faster. I want to start by sharing 3 critical points from the previous videos so that you can get the most out of this one. The first is that you must stop the quick fixes and strategies. They are never going to work in a long-term relationship. Even if you get short-term results, you'll do more damage in the long run. Will actually create more distance between you because she will see it as fake and she will not believe the changes you're trying to make. Second thing, and this is absolutely crucial, you must create a foundation of emotional safety. Think about this. She is starting to pull away, ask for space, and create distance because she no longer feels that emotional safety. She might even be talking to other people about what's really going on and leaving you in the dark. No relationship can heal until you have the skills to create radical emotional safety so that you can have those conversations and bring both of your best selves back to the table. Now, the final piece, and this is what we're going to focus on in this video, is that in order to create emotional safety, we often think it's about doing and saying the right things. But actually, it's about what you don't do and say when your back is against the wall. In other words, when you are under a lot of stress and the waves are crashing against you, can you be that lighthouse? Will you revert back to saying and doing the things that hurt the relationship in the past? I call it the stress test because in some ways she is observing that. And when you get stressed out, can you master your state and still be the calm and centered lighthouse that she needs you to be? I put a little EG there to remind me that I want to share an example with you of a client who actually did all of these. He started out by trying all these strategies. He was trying to fake that he didn't really care that much to create some kind of tension and aloofness. He wanted her to chase him. He also tried begging and pleading and tried celebrating her and giving her lots of affirmations and gifts and things like that. That didn't work. All of these things just came across as fake and she created more and more distance. Instead, when we started working together, he just focused on emotional safety and mastering his state. And he tried nothing else. We just focused first here so that no matter what came his way, he had the skills to be able to handle it. Well, slowly over time, she started talking to him again. She started talking about her work. Then she started talking about the tensions in the family. And then she started talking about her own emotional pains and eventually started talking to him about the relationship. And when he was able to keep that mastered state through all of those discussions, that's when they started to heal. That's when the flirtation came back and the intimacy came back in the relationship. So how do we master our state to create emotional safety? Well, I would do you a disservice if I didn't share with you the patterns that I often see that are ineffective and take much longer. And as the whole purpose of this is to help you to do it faster, I want to point them out to you so that you don't make the same mistakes. The first one is waiting. And I see that in a couple of ways. Firstly, just kind of waiting for things to die down. If there's a lot of stress and tension, you could say to yourself, you know what, I'm just gonna keep things really light, just fly under the radar, don't trigger her, don't say anything that might upset her, and hopefully she'll calm down and things will sort themselves out. The problem with this is that unless you address the deeper emotional baggage that exists between the two of you, the cracks in the relationship just keep getting bigger over time. And eventually it's like the Grand Canyon and you're wondering, how on earth am I going to cross that bridge? The second way that sometimes people wait is that they're often waiting for their partners to be in a good state. They say to themselves, oh, she's really worked up right now, so that's the only reason why I can't stay calm. If she calmed down, then I'll be able to manage my state. Or sometimes you will hear them actually even blaming their partners in real time. They'll say, well, look, how are we supposed to have a calm conversation if you're so worked up? The only reason why I'm getting worked up is because you're worked up. And you see, that's a catch-22 that you'll never get out of. You have to be able to manage your state no matter what state she's in. The second thing that doesn't work is using willpower. You all know some people like this who can, no matter what's going on the outside, they try to always pretend like they're completely in control, completely poised, as if nothing affects them at all. And in this very stressful season, they try to do it by sheer force of will. Well, willpower is like a muscle. Yes, some of us have pretty strong willpowers, but if you keep trying to bottle up your emotions, keep trying, eventually, at enough time, and that muscle is going to weaken and it's going to fail. And when it does, you will either end up with a big display of emotion of sadness or maybe anger, and you'll take 10 steps back when it comes to creating emotional safety. Willpower cannot be your sole strategy, and you've got to learn the skills for managing state without it being this forceful use of will. And then the final thing that I'll often see is that men will sacrifice their own emotional safety for their partner. Sometimes take full-on abuse and just continue to receive and not think about their own needs and what they want. And they think that if they do that they'll somehow be able to mollify their partners, and that she will eventually say, oh my gosh, you know what, you're such a loving partner, and I see how much you're doing, and I am ready to talk again. But this is not true. If you keep sacrificing your needs, how are you going to be in the space to handle the difficult conversations that are going to come up later? How are you going to be the kind of person who commands respect and admiration? You aren't. So as you master your state and try to be that lighthouse, you can't do it at the sacrifice of your own emotional safety. So the next time you're in that stress test, don't just wait for things to calm down or wait for her to be in the right state. You can manage your state, but don't do it through willpower. Don't brute force your way into trying to be perfect. And also don't sacrifice your own emotional safety in the process. So what can you do instead? Well, when you're in that stress test, the first thing that I want you to do is to be able to develop an early warning system. In other words, when things start to escalate and you find that you are losing that centered state, you need to be able to notice what the signals are. Maybe it's that your nostril flares like mine, or your ears get hot, or you find you're stiff. Some people are stiff in the shoulders, or they find themselves holding their chest tight. These little signals, your breath, you notice your breath starts to speed up. When you can become good at detecting those quickly, you will be able to then do something about it. And what do you do when you notice you're losing state? You're going to ask for space, but you're going to do it in the right way. You're not going to say, look, this is getting out of hand. Let's have a conversation later. Or worse, you're starting to get really worked up. I think it's better if we have the conversation later and put it all on her. Instead, what I want you to do is take ownership for the fact that your state is getting affected. You might say something like, and please don't say this word for word because this is what I say. It would be completely weird for you to say the same things if you've never said something like that. But make it your own. It's just a simple thing of noticing your state is shifting and saying, hey, I feel myself getting a little agitated and I'm not able to be present, and that's not how I want to show up for you. Can you just give me a few moments to ground? I just need to pause for a second and come back to myself because how I want to show up to this conversation is different. Would that be all right? What a difference when you take ownership for your state and then ask for time. Hey, a little tip there is to make sure that you say how much time. It could be something like, I just need a couple of minutes, or I need 5 minutes, or I need 10 minutes, or can we talk about this evening because I've got to jump on another call. But make sure you clearly tell your partner when you're going to come back to the conversation. Because for some of us, the longer that we are apart, the more that we get anxious. And if your partner is like that and you just say, I need space, but she doesn't know how long, she's going to get more and more worked up. Giving a clear time is really helpful to reduce that anxiety and manage it while you ground and come back to yourself. Now, how do you ground? How do you clear your state so that you can come back to the conversation the best possible version of yourself? I want to teach you just the principle of a technique that I share with my clients called scanning. And scanning is simply this. You'll step aside, go into another room for just a moment. You only need a few moments for this, but all I want you to do is just scan your body. Don't worry about your thoughts. Don't worry about your emotions. Don't try and get into all of that. For now, just scan your body. Just notice your breathing. Close your eyes. It definitely helps. And notice your breathing is a bit elevated, and allow yourself to calm your breathing down. Notice that you're feeling hot around the ears, or you're tense, or whatever it is. Just scan from head to foot. And as you do that, let your breathing relax and allow yourself to come back to a more calm state. Even if you just do this for a few moments, I'm not talking about some deep, long meditation session. The research is clear. Even just a few minutes of scanning your body, your physical sensations, can help you to release the fight or flight state that we find ourselves in the midst of that stress test. And when you can come back to state, your thoughts will balance out and you'll be able to manage your emotions better. And then you can come back to that conversation, showing up as the best version of yourself. So when you return to the conversation, you're going to do it in the right way. And that is, again, by taking ownership. Start by just acknowledging that you were the one who was out of state, and appreciate your partner for giving you some time and her patience while you came back. And if you need to, apologize for anything that you might have realized while you took that little break. Taking ownership is such a superpower in the midst of a stress test, in the midst of the tension, because it shows our partner the kind of person that we are going to continue to be for the future of this relationship. And it creates more emotional safety as our partner realizes that they can come to you, that when things get difficult, you're going to do the work. You're not going to escalate or shut down. You're going to stay present and do the work to be the kind of partner that you want and she wants for the future of your relationship. And sometimes people will say to me, Ro, this is exactly how I do handle our conversations when they get difficult. And I would have to say the same thing to them that I had to say to myself. Have I done it for long enough and with consistency? And to what level? There were many times when I thought that I was very good at this, but every year that I've been around on this planet has shown me that there's always room to grow in this area. The advantage is I've been practicing this not just in my marriage. I practice it with my colleagues. I practice it with other family members. Anytime that I find myself out of state, I practice the skill. In fact, I practice it even when I'm just by myself. And because I've been practicing this for over a decade, I find I'm not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but I find I notice a little bit sooner when I'm out of state, and I'm able to come back to state faster. And as a result, I know that for my partner today, with a little bit of time, I can show up for her when she is struggling. I can show up when I am struggling because I know I can do that work to be able to manage my state. And when I do that, I create emotional safety. When she does it, she creates emotional safety for me. Now, you might be in a season of your relationship where your partner is not either able or willing to do that work. It does not matter. because you can break that pattern. You can. I know, because I've seen it over and over and over with my clients. Some of them in very difficult situations have been able to learn these skills, to master their state, to create emotional safety and reconnect with their partners. So what are the key takeaways from this one? Well, the first is that you should not rely solely on willpower. It will not last. Eventually, that muscle will give out. Instead, what you need to do is to have a series of practices that you can do outside of the stressful times in your relationship. And when you practice it enough, you will find that it gets so much easier. A practice of awareness for that early warning system. Just noticing each time you get worked up. You don't even have to try to shift your state initially. Just spend a few days noticing any time that you get out of state. Notice what your tells are. And then develop a practice for being able to scan so that you can come back to state. Asking for that pause and stepping aside. With one of my clients, we created a rhythm where he set an alarm throughout the day so that he wasn't just trying to use this just with his partner. Whenever that little alarm went off, he would take a moment, if he could, and just quickly scan his body and just see what was his physical state and see if he could come back to that centered, grounded state. Because he practiced it consistently, he found himself doing it with his work colleagues, with his kids, with his friends. When he was in that stress test, when things started to escalate, he was no longer relying on willpower. It was more natural. It's like muscle memory, like an athlete who's been drills, so that when they're in the game, they don't have to think about it. It just happens naturally. And he found himself doing that consistently. And as a result, he was able to create the results that I told you about earlier. All right, now, if one of the things that stops you from doing this work is that you find it's very hard to take ownership when you're in a situation where your partner is not taking ownership for her stuff. I know how draining that can be, and so I don't want to downplay it. In fact, I created a video to help you with that exact challenge by being able to have a mindset shift that will help you for the very first step in healing your relationship. So watch that one next, and I'll see you there. Ciao.